Hi, I'm Brianna, and I've been a member of Primal Trust for about 2.5 years now. And I joined the group when I was very, very sick. I've been diagnosed with Lyme, mold, Bartonella, dysautonomia, Epstein-Barr, and I have had through nervous system work and just all of the work in Primal Trust. Um, a completely life changing experience. My life is totally different than it was 2 years ago, and I have just such a rich, full life. And I'm so, so thankful to Dr. Kathleen and Primal Trust for helping me get here.
Hi, everyone. I am joined today by Brianna, who has been a Primal Trust member for a while now, and she has quite a story of healing from mold and Lyme. You had dysautonomia, Bartonella, OCD. There's probably more things, and I hear you're doing quite well, and so I'm excited to share your story. I'm sure the listeners are going to want to hear all the things that you were struggling with, and maybe even how you got sick and how you are doing now after implementing nervous system tools. So here's another success story. Welcome, Brianna.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
So why don't you tell us about what you were struggling with? What were your diagnoses? When did it start? What was life like for you?
So I had always struggled with OCD as a kid, and then I kind of started getting pretty severe stomach issues in my teens, but it was in my 20s when everything started building up for me. Um, and it was in my late 20s in 2020 when the perfect storm hit, and I kind of just completely collapsed. And I was on the couch for like a month and a half trying to figure out what was going on and why I was so sick. And I was like really struggling to breathe. Up until that point, like I had been dealing with like really difficult periods, really difficult allergies. Sometimes I would lose a ton of weight. Sometimes I would gain a bunch of weight. There were times when I couldn't walk because my back, like I would just, my back would hurt so bad that one time I couldn't walk for like a week. And like all these really weird things were happening, and it was just building up and up until 2020. I just couldn't breathe. Like I was really struggling to breathe, and it was scary. And I went to my family doctor about 5 times. I went to the hospital a couple of times, and it got to the point where they were like, we don't know what to do. They gave me tons of pills. They tried everything. And so I just asked my doctor, like, should I try natural medicine, I guess? And he said, yeah, I mean, go for it. Let me know if you find something that works for you. And so I started this really long journey into natural medicine. I started with like a month of juicing. I literally drank like vegetable and fruit juice for a month straight. It was really intense. Um, then I broke out in hives all over my body for a year and a half, just suddenly. And it was so sudden and so weird. Um, there weren't very many foods that I could eat. I just went from doctor to doctor to doctor, some naturopathic medical doctors, some naturopathic doctors, chiropractors. I tried um, lots of intense, crazy diets. Um, at times, I was taking like 50 pills a day, like supplements, and I was on 3 different inhalers at once. It was wild. And so I just kept getting passed from doctor to doctor to doctor, and they didn't know what to do with me. And then they're like, oh, I'm going to pass you off to this person because when I can't help them, this person always can help them. But then it just wasn't helping. And I have always been a really negative person, a very like fix it, like anything's wrong, I'm like, I gotta figure this out, I gotta fix it, I gotta fix myself, I'm not safe. So I was in a really bad place mentally, and I don't think it's a coincidence that I collapsed in 2020. That was a pretty toxic year, and I was in a really bad place politically, like arguing with everybody on Facebook all the time. So anyways, I got a mold diagnosis during that time. And we became really hyperfixated on mold. There was a mold issue in the place that we were living, and then we moved into this house, which is a really great home. And my husband was having issues too, but not as extreme as mine were. And when we moved in here, we immediately started experiencing great improvements. And within like 6 months, I was off all my inhalers pretty much immediately. I was starting to eat almost whatever I wanted. And all my hives went away. And so I was like, great, it was the house. It was the mold. And we got a really expensive mold company to come out, like spent a lot of money to look at this house, make sure that it was okay. And this is like a 4-year-old home at the time. And they said we needed $100,000 worth of remediation. So here begins my second perfect storm. So that was really stressful, but I decided I don't want to go down this rabbit trail. I don't understand what's going on. I don't know why I would need that. I'm getting better here. So that was when my alarm bell started going off, and I'm thinking like, can this mold thing be taken too far, perhaps? And then some relational stuff started happening, like a couple of relationships falling apart. This was in 2022. So we've been in this house for 5 months or so. And then I found out I had Lyme. So I got my Lyme diagnosis and Bartonella diagnosis then. And I got COVID, which I had had like 4 or 5 times before, and I was fine. But this time it just like, I think it was the straw that broke the camel's back for my nervous system. And that was when I became sicker than I have ever been in my life. Like I had a hard time walking. I really struggled with balance. I was extremely dizzy all the time, making really weird choices. Like it felt like I was getting Alzheimer's or something. And so I was afraid to drive and just couldn't do normal things, and was really struggling to read, was struggling to put sentences together, very fatigued, light sensitivity, all that kind of stuff. And I was having a lot of heart pain, and this is kind of what drove me to start your program. And I had seen your program on Instagram. I saw people talking about it because I was just desperately looking for answers. And I was just in bed a lot. Like I couldn't get out of bed a lot of the time, or it was just really hard to get out of bed. And so I start seeing people with the same conditions talking about Primal Trust. And so I went to your Instagram and I started following you, and ended up going back to the hospital. And when I came back, I was like, I have to take a break from all these treatments. I have to take a break from everything. This is so stressful. I have to get help with my stress. This is just too much. So I was like, I'm doing Primal Trust. So I started creating Calm. And I don't know if you want me to stop there. That's kind of how the sequence of events that led me to your program. But
I just want to pause and sort of validate that I see this a lot, where people like they start getting symptoms and then they hear it's mold and they move and it starts to get better, but then somehow always they end up moving into another moldy place. It's almost like when you try to get away from something, like somehow the next place you're at, sure enough, oh, this is a problem. Whereas like before in your life, you never would have been thinking about it. This home, maybe you would have never reacted to the second home or in any way had you not known about mold. And I feel like it's important to know about mold because obviously it can destroy people's lives. And once someone finds out about it, I swear they get worse.
yes,
And
yeah.
and I mean that was the case for me. So anyway, yeah, so okay, you started taking my first early program, which was called Creating Calms, before we created the level 1 Regulate. And you obviously had enough self-awareness to like stop going down the rabbit hole of running from mold, that's the only thing. What was it that really helped you? A lot of people have this hard time, Brianna, of taking the leap from the problem is mold to the problem is maybe my nervous system. Give us a real clear understanding of how you redirected your focus to that.
I'm not exactly sure what happened. I think when we moved into this house and I saw, because I do believe that mold can be an issue for sure, but I totally joined the back. Like I took it too far, and I didn't realize I was doing that, but I took it too far. But like seeing how much my husband improved and how I was improving, I just was like, what is going on here? And actually made me really angry when they said, you need $100,000 worth of remediation on your house. And I was like, no, I don't. I don't, like, why would I be getting so much better here?
Yeah.
But I, so that I think was kind of the beginning of starting to question that, like, are we taking it too far? You know, is there more, is there something more? Because before it was like, it's all mold, it's mold, that's the answer. And so I started questioning, like, is there something more going on? And I didn't understand anything about the nervous system yet. But as I was watching your videos on Instagram, I was like, I'd never heard about this before, but it was really making sense to me. And I was opening up to it because I was just like desperate. I was like, I'll try anything. And that, like, this is working for other people. They've done all the things that I've tried before, and this is finally helping them. And so I think seeing other people talking about their success and having gone through exactly what I went through was really powerful for me. And then just listening to your videos online and listening to your videos and creating calm, like, it just made sense to me, like the way you explained it very logically and very scientifically. And so that motivated me to try and helped me believe, like, maybe this is something that, because I knew, like, okay, I'm a very stressed out person. Like, I'm the most stressed out person I know. Like, nobody's coming to me for calm if they're in a place of stress. I'm the last person you want to ask for help if you're in a stressful situation. And everybody knew that, and I knew that. And so it sparked interest in me, like, maybe my stress is contributing to this more than I realize. And trauma too, you know, emotional wounding that I had never dealt with. So, and then I think just desperation. I was like, I will try anything. I will try this. And it sounded nice to just let go of all the other stuff that I was doing and just focus on stress. There was something so freeing about that, to give myself permission to take a break.
At your worst, what was your function like? Because I want a lot of people to listen who are like, oh, but she didn't have it as bad as I did. Tell me what it was like at your worst.
At my worst, I was having, at my worst, I couldn't walk. Like, there were times, and there are people who have had it way worse than me, which is really saying a lot because it was not great. Like, there were times when I'd get up and I was like, I cannot walk, and I'd have to get back and lay down. There were times when I was so fatigued, I could hardly open my eyes. Like, I would just lay there and listen to your videos. I couldn't even open my eyes to look at the videos. I certainly couldn't do house chores. My husband had to take over and do everything. He had to cook, he had to clean. I had to wear, like, glasses in my home with all the lights off because I was so sensitive to light. I had to draw the shades. I wear sunglasses everywhere, a hat to cover my eyes. I would walk up to my water filter and just turn it on and watch it drain to the floor without, like, and then be like, why did I just do that? And I would have difficulty making decisions while driving. Or I would talk to people and I just couldn't hold a sentence. Like, I would start a sentence and I would forget everything that I was about to say, or I would just start speaking gibberish, and it was really embarrassing. Like, it was bizarre. It was really hard to live like that. And it was so sudden too. Like, I never felt so out of control, and I also never felt so fragile. Like, I was just having the biggest mental breakdown like 20 times a day. It's like, what is happening to me? Like, why? And I believe that this was a long time coming, and I just hit a point where it was like, kaboom. And it's just like, my nervous system just couldn't take it anymore.
And what kind of, I know they're going to ask, people always want to know, what kind of treatments did you do for like the Lyme and Bartonella and the mold? Like, what did you do alongside nervous system work?
So I didn't do a whole lot alongside nervous system work because I had already done a bunch of stuff before. Like, I remember doing 6 months of mold treatment, and I was really sick doing that. Like, we kept having to adjust the dosage. I was so sensitive. I couldn't even do like homeopathy. Like, I got to the point, I was so sensitive. Everything would just trigger this crazy detox or reaction or whatever in me. Like, I was so sensitive. And so I did lots of diets. I did like the most extreme form of candida diet that you can do for like 3 months. It was wild. The juice fast, I did lots of mold, trying to do mold detoxing like straight for 6 months. Didn't really get me anywhere. I was on some pills for like my cortisol for 6 months. Rechecked my cortisol. It was just as high as it was before. I did a little bit of Lyme detoxing, but I didn't really find out that I had Lyme until I found your program. And that was kind of when I was like, I need to stop. And I was about to do a parasite cleanse, and I was just feeling really overwhelmed. So I never actually did a parasite cleanse, but I did a little bit of Lyme detox, like about a year into your program. Just kind of like as I was, because after I started your program, I had this like, I have to heal from nervous system regulation alone. And I can talk a little bit more about that later, but I started slowly opening back up to doctors again, because I got really closed off to doctors for a while. But
I think this is an important conversation. We're always trying to find what that balance is. And I do see people heal with nervous system regulation alone. And sometimes like things can help just optimize your process as well. Like if you can handle taking binders to help get rid of mold, I think that's a good thing. If you can handle taking things to help improve liver function, so you're detoxing, you know, I'm not an extremist. And so I think that's why I asked, because
mm,
it sounds like for the most part, you let go a lot of the stuff. You realized it wasn't the diets and the cortisol pills and the mold stuff that was going to fix you, which is great, because then when you do take something in, you're coming at it with a better mindset, more realistic. This thing isn't going to save me. I'm going to be rebalancing my nervous system. These things just help. So yeah, talk
mm,
to us a little bit more about that part of your process. I just think it's important.
yeah, I feel like for me, I had to stop everything. And I literally did. I started your program and I stopped everything. And I stopped talking to my doctor. I actually eventually told her I'm doing this, and she was like so on board. Um, and she's told me like, keep doing it, keep doing nervous system stuff. Like, this is what has helped you more than literally anything. It's helped me more than anything. And she's helped, like, we've done a lot of different things together, but I had to let go of everything because try as I might, I just, in the beginning, I didn't have the brain pattern. I didn't have the capacity to really believe that those things were just supportive, that they weren't going to fix me. And now I know anything that I do is supportive. Like, even the nervous system regulation is supportive. That's not going to fix me. That was a huge, huge thing. I actually had to stop your program a year in and like recalibrate, because I was like, I'm taking a fix-it approach and it's having the opposite effect. And
Thank you for saying that. Everybody, did you hear that? Even the nervous system tools can be a fix-it approach. Okay, continue.
yeah, no, I just have that's, I think, one of my biggest parts is the fixer. And so doing your program and just letting go of everything, it really helped me to, like, I just had to achieve a calmer state. I needed the change in my brain, the repatterning to happen, and then eventually I was able to really view everything as like my body can do it. I can trust my body. Like my body is amazing. It's done so many other things before. Like I used to trust it. Whenever I'd get sick, I'd just wait and I'd trust it and I'd get better. And everything else really is just supportive. And I can actually see it that way now. And so eventually I did open my heart back up to doctors and some supportive stuff. And because of your program, I was able to tolerate those things. Like I can do the binders now. There's no way I couldn't do a binder before. It was, I would react so poorly. And there's so many things that I do now that have, I've been like, they've really supported me, and I don't react really at all to them. Just like a normal person, I react to them. So it's really cool.
What do you think, in your opinion, was the actual setup for you getting sick? We know it's not mold. What, if you look back, this is so important for people listening. You're getting your diagnosis and you're like, oh, it's the mold, it's the Lyme, it's the this or that. That's the final straw. So I asked this question to a lot of the people who recover because they realize that it wasn't usually that. So let's talk about what actually was your root cause. What was that?
Emotional wounding, not knowing how to deal with my emotions. I really believe that now. Trauma. I think that there were a lot of elements of my childhood that was really difficult. I had a really difficult relationship with my mother. And, you know, I think that just a lot of, I'm a deeply, deeply emotional person. Like I feel everything really intensely, good or bad. I feel all the spectrum of the emotions, and I just never, ever knew how to deal with those. And so they were always out of control. I just learned and then stayed a very, very negative person. Like my perception of life was always just like very, very negative. I was really angry. I had a lot of pain I didn't know how to deal with. And like going through your program, the nervous system stuff was amazing. It really was amazing. And I would say I've gotten to about 80%. Like, I mean, most of my function is back. As far as symptoms, I'm about 80+% there. And I fully, fully believe that it is the pain that I just need to keep feeling somatically, this like trauma release that, because for a long time I was like, why am I not fully healing? Why is it taking so long for me? But I really think that it is the experiences that I had in life and a lot of pain that has been stored up for a really long time that I think as an adult, I was just talking with my parts therapist. I see an internal family systems therapist. And I think that, and she thinks that these symptoms were a clue that I'm now ready to deal with that pain. Like I am safe now. I feel safe now. And I think that it's interesting to look at symptoms that way as like a clue to, hey, I'm ready to deal with all of this pain, but it's difficult to deal with it. And so now that's kind of the place that I'm at, having all of this nervous system capacity and having all of these tools now, being able to finally just sit with that pain and let myself sort of process it. But I really think that was the setup for getting sick. And I just hit a point where my body couldn't take it anymore. It was too much, and it was like nervous system overload, pain overload. I think that's a big part of it.
A lot of people like you have this setup, but they don't realize it, because the way this setup manifests is that you end up being like vigilant or like type A, or, you know, always doing things. And it doesn't seem like you're in a trauma response until you start doing this work and you're like, oh my gosh, I've been constantly in an overwhelmed state. And I love interviewing people who are still on their way to to their final, because it's important for people to see the process and to see what you can tell by listening to you. Your focus isn't about the mold and the Lyme and Bartonella and all of those things. Your focus is, and it's not even about the nervous system tools. It is about healing what was lost a long time ago, your relationship with yourself and how you perceive the world. And because you have that focus and you have that desire to meet your wounding and to continue to feel the layers upon layers that are there, I have no doubt that you'll continue to thrive and recover like you have so beautifully. I've been watching Brianna's journey on Instagram. I reached out to you. Gosh, how long ago was it when I first reached out to you? Because you were
I
talking about your
think
story.
I think it was like 2 years ago.
Yeah, a couple years
Yeah,
ago. You were sharing, you were really struggling, and there was just something about you. And I felt compelled to, yeah, to let you know I see you and I believe in
thank
you.
you.
um, because even back then you were on the right track. There's a lot of people who are in this space and they're doing the work, but they're not on the right track. If I were to be so blunt, it's that same personality. I could feel that you wanted the truth. You wanted to see and discover what was actually going on. And here we are a couple years later, and I know your function back then was just really low. And to see, you show up on my list today for a success interview, it just made me smile because I know how hard fought this has been. You've shared your journey along the way. You've inspired so many other people. And right now, this is going to continue to inspire people that you're still in it. You're still willing to be like, I want to fully recover my function. I want to meet what's wounded. Um, and even just declaring that publicly, it's going to do a lot for you. So thank you for this share.
Thank you for saying all of that. That means a lot to me, and it is like really surreal doing this. I always like, am I gonna be one? Am I gonna get to do a testimonial one day? And today's the 2 year anniversary of like when I fully committed. Like it was a really, really big moment for me. I'll never forget. And we just so happened to schedule this today. But I do want to say something popped into my head that might it is as important, but might be even more important of why I think I got sick. I had a huge identity issue. Like had, I was really struggling to be myself. Like couldn't, I I wasn't living my values. I knew my values actually, which is the interesting thing. Like I knew deep down what my purpose was. But I was trying to live any other value to gain people's approval. My whole life was about like, what can I say? What can I do to gain people's approval? How can I just agree with everybody and be a chameleon and be whoever everybody needs me to be in every situation? And I was such a big people pleaser. I said yes to everything. And I wore that as like a badge of honor, but it was actually kind of prideful. Like I wanted to control people's perception of me. And once I started breaking free from that, especially in level one, I started to say no more and set boundaries. And it was really uncomfortable at first, but I knew I needed to do that. And now I don't want to say I love saying no, but I like saying no a lot more. And I know who I am now. Like I grew up in kind of like a fundamentalist church. And I was homeschooled, and so that contributed to the setup of this kind of like identity issue. But I had this like amazing renewal of my faith actually going through your program. Like it was really amazing. I had to start asking these really tough questions like, what do I actually believe? Like if everybody I knew was gone, would I still believe these things? And it was a really powerful thing to go through. And so I going through level one and especially level two and just getting like so clear on this is who I am. I'm not going to be ashamed anymore. I'm going to start being this person. I'm not going to be ashamed when people say I'm dramatic. I'm not going to be ashamed of being expressive and eccentric and all these things. And just getting so clear on my values, that helped me so much. And I feel like every month, I just told my husband this the other day, like, I feel like I'm settling more and more into like, this is who so I know who I am, and getting clearer on my purpose in life and my meanings, and like what I'm supposed to do, how I'm supposed to contribute to the world. Like, that has been huge. I just didn't know who I was afraid. I didn't really know who I was. And I was so afraid to be myself. I was so afraid of rejection. All I wanted was for everybody to accept me, and I was willing to do anything to get that. And I think that really set me up for being sick too.
Yeah, I see that, which is why, yeah, we have a level 1 program and a level 2 program for those of you who are listening. Level 1 is like the toolkit of the basic nervous system practices, and level 2, we really look at our identity and where maybe we've lost our connection with ourself along the way. And it's so interesting, Brianna. A lot of people, like, they don't go do level 2, and I don't know why. I'm like, this is the whole thing. What would you say to somebody who's in level 1? They're like, just need to stay in level 1, and I don't know. And what would you say about that resistance to level 2?
Um, it's not as scary as you may think it is. It's like really, really amazing. I waited maybe even a little too long to start, because I was like, I don't want to rush things. Like, I always rush things. I don't want this to be about just the physical healing. I want it to, so I was trying to do it the right way. And I actually had to have Janet and my husband were like, you're ready for level 2. You're ready for level 2. And I was like, okay. And I was really nervous, but it was amazing. It was amazing. And I made some of my closest connections with people through going through level 2. Like, I just found amazing breakthrough in level 2. Like, my gosh, like, the divine neutrality was huge for me, and it helped me develop so much compassion for myself. And I mean, I was somebody who I desperately wanted people's validation. That was a big thing I struggled with. I was angry. I felt very alone. I felt very judged and misunderstood with all my illnesses and stuff. And through level 2, I just had so many breakthroughs, and I really found myself in that program, and it's really, really exciting. And it doesn't you don't have to go through it really fast. You can go through it, at a slower pace. But it's very, very exciting. And if you feel ready to do level 2, that's a really big deal, because to build up the nervous system capacity to be able to start moving towards those things is really, really exciting.
I think people don't understand that their symptoms have so much to do with their connection with themselves, because the immune system, which is what was so overreactive with you, that's why you had the hives and all the things. Our immune system is just taking the instruction from our own psyche. And when we are connected with ourselves, when we know who we are versus who we're not, and we're willing to say yes and no when we mean it, the immune system gets more discerning instructions, and it doesn't overreact everything. And all of this is stuff we work in level 2. And I'm always amazed that so many people hang out in level 1, like waiting to be ready. And I'm like, just go to level 2, because that's where so much of what you've described, the transformation happens. And you talked about the divine neutrality process, which is currently class 7 of level 2. It's my favorite practice of my entire Primal Trust platform. And
Wow.
80 or 70% of people don't even go there. It's like, get to that practice and it will shift so many things inside of you. So
It started moving me towards forgiveness, which I think was one of the biggest shifts that I needed. And I felt like, how can I forgive? Like, I feel like it's my Everest, and I'm totally unprepared. And I don't see how I can ever do this. And that doing level 2 and the divine neutrality, it really helped me see myself how I believe God sees me. And it's just this like unconditional love for everything. And finally validating myself. And anyways, there's so much I could say about that. But yeah, it I love level two. Level two is amazing.
I can feel that. And I really do believe like we have these symptoms, we come in trying to heal, but the true healing is the wounding of our heart. And it is often an acceptance or even a forgiveness process. And ultimately ourself. Like it's ultimately like letting us be us through the process of letting reality be what it is or what it was. Um, and and when our heart opens when we do that, like life force comes back. It's pretty magical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so if you were to give advice to somebody who was like you, who maybe they're just finding out about their mold diagnosis and Lyme, and they're being thrown all these protocols and they're overwhelmed and all this stuff, talking to you several years ago, what would you say to you to help get them on the right track?
I would, I wrote down little notes here for that question. I wanted to have the best answers I could. Just start doing it. I think a lot of people feel like maybe it's not the right time, but it's never the right time. Like the best time is just now, just start. And there's so many different ways to do the program. In fact, I think everybody has to do it differently in order for it to really support them. What I've learned is, but and I know probably some people would be really nervous thinking about, stopping everything like I did. But I would just encourage people to just get in there and just start listening to the videos and just start understanding the science behind all of this. And just open yourself up a little bit to it. And I would say to definitely join study groups. Like I didn't connect with people a lot in the beginning, and once I started connecting with people, that made a huge difference. Because it was hard for me at first. Like the riding the polyvagal wave was intense, but it was like also one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. Like it was so messy and so beautiful. And even just in level one, I experienced a lot of, that's what I would say to people is like, even just in level one, before I started level two, I experienced a lot of improvement in my symptoms. My dizziness got better. I started to be able to drive again. I started getting more energy. I started being able to do stuff around the house more. And so yeah, I guess I would just say to myself back then, don't be afraid to just kind of throw yourself into it and let go of perfection, because I was such a perfectionist and I was like, I got to do 2.5 hours of brain retraining every single day, but that was actually hurting me. I think less is more, and especially just trying all of the tools and finding the ones that really you feel like nourish you, and then just doing it intuitively. That has been the best thing when I started to just do it intuitively. And watching your perfectionism video with Tessa Milcarney really something shifted in me. It was like all of a sudden I felt like permission, like I don't need to do 2 hours a day of this anymore. I can just take some time for myself and see what my body is craving and what do I need today, because every day is different. But I know that those are kind of things that people struggle with in the beginning when they're starting the program.
Yeah, the perfectionism video she's talking about is under our core popular guest classes, and it was a couple years ago with Tessa Milcarney and I. When you were using your intuition about your practices, can you give us an example of like what a day looks like of your nervous system regulation practice when you were less perfectionistic and just doing you?
Yeah, so getting into the somatics really helped me with this, and just understanding my body's cues and what my body wanted and what it needed, because I just was so disconnected from my body. So the somatics was like set me up for success here. But I just kind of would set aside time in the morning. I try to do it in the morning, to really establish a mindset for the day. And I have a list of all my favorite tools, which is pretty much like all the tools in your program. I love all of them. I enjoyed pretty much every single one of them. I can't think of one that I didn't. So I created a list, and I would just grab it and I would look at it and I would just kind of like graze my eyes over it and see which one jumped out at me. And the more connected I've become with my body, the more I don't even need to look at the list to know. It's like sometimes I wake up and I'm like, I need to do some inquiry. Like I need to do, this is from level 2, but the rules worksheets from level 2 in the beginning, I use those like probably every other day still to just kind of be like understanding these patterns that I've been in my whole life, and just being with the discomfort and then being able to shift my perspective. Like that video you just did a couple of weeks ago was huge for me, but the New Year video. So I would do the rules worksheet, or a lot of times I just need to shake. And so I would turn on whatever songs I felt like matched my nervous system energy. And sometimes it was really angry music, and sometimes it was like really light and airy and just like really calm. And I would move my body in literally whatever way it needed to move. Sometimes I'd be jumping around my room for a while, and it just really, really helped regulate my nervous system. Sometimes my eyes crave the eye yoga or the Rosenberg. I just like to like take a minute and just sit and listen to my body and just listen to what it's telling me. And so that's the approach that I take. And I like to do at least 30 minutes a day. It feels really nice to not have to rush it. But then some days, you know, in the morning, I have a really busy morning, and then it's like 5 minutes, or sometimes it's 15 minutes. I love doing the VU breath, or sometimes I just go on a walk and I do some orienting and so like a quick ABC just to get my perspective in a good place.
I love how you've described that it's a very like free flow. Like it's not, we go through the practice and I give like these suggested practices at the end of each module, and people are like, I've got to do exactly that and exactly where this module says. And it's like, no, you don't. In fact, I love like printing out the list of all the tools like that you can get at the end. It's like 40 tools, and just like picking one or two from different categories. And what I often say to people is think of three things every day: something to elevate your mood, something to get into your breath, and something to move your body. Elevate, breathing, moving. Just, elevating, you could be looking outside and looking at birds you like. Moving, and you could turn on a favorite song and move your body. Breathing, just sitting there, and a few VU breaths. Like this is just a lifestyle. And so thank you for sort of emphasizing to make this intuitive and make this just work for you versus that perfectionistic way. My program was never meant to have everybody do all of the tools. I just know that there isn't a one size fits all tool, and a lot of programs have like the tool, and that just doesn't work for everyone. So I wanted to give people a toolkit to choose from.
Yeah, that's how I feel the best, is when I do it intuitively, because I'm different from everybody else, and it's all about remembering that I am safe, I am okay, and every day that looks a little bit different. What helps me to get back into that feeling of I am okay, I am safe. That looks different for me, and that looks different for me every day even. So, and it was hard for me to break free from. Like I was so that was really difficult, but I had to just start doing it and start practicing the feeling of it's safe to do this. It's safe to be intuitive. I'm not unsafe if I don't do 2.5 hours of brain retraining.
Yeah, yeah, over. Is there anything else you want to share with the crowd? Anything from the questions, or anything else before we wrap up?
Well, I'd love to thank you, and I'll try not to get emotional. Okay, I can't help it. Yeah, I'll be doing this work for the rest of my life. it really has been one of the biggest blessings ever. And I really am grateful now that I got sick, which is kind of crazy to say, because I now am continuing to move towards the person that I always wanted to be, but I wasn't willing to do the work. And I didn't want to be angry and miserable all the time. And I think getting sick was just this really amazing opportunity to be like, here's your chance. You know, it kind of gave me like no other option. I'm like, fine, I'll do it. I'll finally work on myself. I'll finally deal with my pain. And it's just like, I just love your program. I love it. I think it's the most well-rounded program. And it really has changed my life in every way. It's changed all my relationships. It's changed like everything about me, but like in a good way. Like I'm so much closer to who I am. And so I would just tell people, like, if you're on the fence, I totally get it. And I had to take that leap of faith and do it, and just know like it really is like one of the most amazing decisions you can ever make. And everybody needs this work, I think. And I would just say the very first things that we learn ended up being, now that I'm finally doing them, some of the most important things and the most life-changing is in just starting to pattern interrupt.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not going to pattern interrupt. And I was like, I'm not going to stop talking about my symptoms. But my gosh, I feel the absolute best when I do that. And I also just want to end on this topic of belief, like believing in what you're doing and that it's working is so important. And I don't know what it is. We have this supernatural ability to believe. It's hard to explain, but it really is so powerful. And I think such an important part of just, believing that what you're doing is working for you. So I would just tell people, believe, don't be afraid to try. Now is the time. And you don't have to do it alone. There is hope. And I'm proof of that. So my life is completely different now.
Wow.
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you for this program and for everything that you've put into it and for allowing me to share my story.
Thank you for showing up to do the work, because you're going to help change a lot of lives as they read this or listen to this and get inspired. And that's how the trickle effect happens. And it's just such an honor for me to like be able to share these gifts with you, and you're sharing the gifts with others, and we're changing the collective paradigm of how to heal and how to, ultimately heal our hearts. And you're right.
Yes.
It's for everybody. People say, oh, is your program just for people with chronic illness? I'm like, no, it's for humanity. We've all lost touch with our capacity to self-regulate. Some of us have illness symptoms and some of us don't. But so thank you for that beautiful message.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for listening. And where they can find you and follow the rest of your story, you are at a Winkle in Time.
Yeah, my last name is Van Winkle, so it's a Winkle in Time on Instagram.
Yeah, not Wrinkle, but Winkle.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Brianna. So nice to chat with you today.
Thank you so much. So good to meet you and finally get to talk about all this.